How is technology currently transforming project delivery methods? And then how do you see it evolving in the future?
This evolution where we're delivering building information models, we're calling them, often like model-based delivery, as a project methodology term. Where I began my career was probably the early days of people starting to think in terms of 3D. So representing infrastructure at 3D, you just leave it to marketers and software companies to develop new terminology, to sort of put a new face on an old concept. But basically, we've been trying to move to intelligent, object-based.
Welcome to this episode of the AEC Engineering and Technology Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping engineering professionals find technology that fits their needs. When it comes to traditional project delivery, we've all heard the horror stories. Projects running months behind schedule, budgets blown to smithereens, and teams stuck in a cycle of miscommunication and inefficiency. It's a frustrating and familiar scenario that many of us have faced at one time or another. The root cause of these problems often lies in the outdated methods and tools we use to manage our projects. We rely on manual data entry, clunky software, and outdated communication channels, all contributing to delays and inefficiencies. But what if I told you there's a better way? In this episode, I'm joined by Joseph Viscuso, Senior Vice President and Director of Strategic Growth at Pennoni, and Markus Weidner, Chief Innovation Officer at Pennoni, to talk about how cutting-edge technologies like AI, automation, and innovative project delivery tools are revolutionizing the industry. We'll dive into current state of tech adoption, the challenges of implementation, and what the future holds for project delivery in the AEC sector. I'm your host, Nick Heim, and this is the AEC Engineering and Technology Podcast. With that, let's jump into today's episode. It's now time for our conversation of the week with Joseph Viscuso and Markus Weidner. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show, and welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Same here.
And I love these tandem interviews, guys, because it gives an opportunity to do a little bit of back and forth and get you guys individual perspectives on things. But before we start that tandem piece, I'll ask you both guys an opening question. Can you both tell us a little bit about yourselves and what led to your current roles at Pennoni?
So my title at Pennoni is Director of Strategic Growth. It's really top-line growth of the company. In some places, I would be a CMO. And you can grow a company a couple ways. One by mergers and acquisitions, others growing the business model and finding new opportunities. And I personally have always had an interest in technology. And I really believe that technology is a way that a lot of firms are going to grow in a variety of ways. So we kind of at Pennoni have put that sort of at the forefront of one of our growth strategies, looking at technologies and look at those opportunities to bring those technologies to our clients. I am a civil engineer by trade and had my own business at one point. Like I said, I've always been interested in growth. So the role at Pennoni is perfect for me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, so I have a civil engineering education, and then I pivoted the early part of my career and took a job with a large public water utility, and that's where I got my first experiences with technology. Worked in their geospatial department. And, it was really the early days of people building out asset management and, utilizing, we'll say, data collection, geospatial platforms to make, better decisions. And, after that, a few years later, I took a role here at Pennoni and worked through a series of, progressive opportunities until I became the Chief Innovation Officer in 2017, and that role really has me partnered pretty tightly with Joe on, developing and marketing digital capabilities outside the firm. I've got, of course, some in-house responsibilities, but a lot of my attention these days is spent, as I said, working on how we can deliver, evolving and, increasingly, higher quality digital solutions to our clients.
Beautiful. And guys, I love this. It sounds like a 1-2 punch, right? Because as we all know, it can be easy to get and use technology for technology's sake as a shiny object. But it sounds like what you guys have is a combination of business objectives and strategy that are fueled by use of technology. And Joe, it sounds like growth is a big one of those objectives for you guys.
Yeah, and I think we're a good combination because I still am a practitioner, working with a lot of clients in project delivery. And so, I have this role, but I still interface with a lot of projects and clients. And I think Markus is a great sort of as you said, a good 1-2 punch for us. Because when I see the technologies, or when he sees the technology, what we really want to do first and foremost is make sure they fit into that they're going to work to the benefit of our client. And I think Marcus's technical capabilities combined with my sort of my project experience is a great combination.
Absolutely. And Markus, great segue into our next question. So speaking of projects and project delivery methods, how is technology currently transforming project delivery methods? And then how do you see it evolving in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what's happening right now, a lot of people look at this evolution where we're delivering building information models, we're calling them, often like model-based delivery, as a project methodology term. Really, it began years ago. And frankly, I'd say, where I began my career was probably the early days of people starting to think in terms of 3D. So representing infrastructure at 3D. And, you just leave it to marketers and software companies to develop new terminology, to sort of put a new face on an old concept. But basically, we've been trying to move to intelligent object-based modeling for many, many years. And I think we're finally at a point where, let's say in the vertical trades, there's a lot more successful vertical integration when it comes to, architecture and all of the support engineering services that go into, bringing building out of the ground. And the same thing is happening on the horizontal side, where we're seeing, especially, we'll say in the Bentley portfolio, a lot of horizontal integration between the below and the above grade design efforts. They're prefixing everything with open roads, open bridge, open site. But I do think that there's a vision there. And what it really means is that they're starting to create, we'll say, an integration fabric where all of the different consulting partners on a project can integrate seamlessly. And I think that to me is really where the industry is going, is that we're acknowledging the fact that it's unlikely that there's ever only going to be one consultant on a project. So how can you seamlessly integrate all of the great talent that they bring to bear and, create some kind of digital harmony where, instead of shipping files back and forth and have coordinated efforts and frankly, disconnects that lead to errors and omissions and other problems down the road, but instead create, a platform that's open and, I'd say, inclusive to all the different ways these different groups work, because they're not all necessarily sitting behind a desk either, behind, giant monitors.
And I know that, Markus, talking to people outside the industry, that's one thing that's definitely different about AEC is just both, I'd say, the breadth and the depth of different types of consultants, projects, trades, scopes, right? And just even the fact that most of the work does not take place behind a computer when it comes to, physically building a project. So it sounds like, you guys are right in the middle of a lot of different types of needs that the company has, and it may not be as easy to find that one single source.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add, and I think we're going to get into this in some of the other questions later, but you just hit the nail on the head. To deliver a civil engineering infrastructure project, the larger ones could have 20 or 30 partner firms all collaborating, and we can't expect that everybody's at the same level of, we'll say, digital capacity and has the same digital capabilities. So that's one of the other things that does make collaboration difficult. So as much as we can say, well, we're going to utilize data collection and we're going to feed machine learning models and we're going to make data-driven decisions, the clients aren't necessarily ready, and sometimes the partner firms aren't ready either. So you do have to, kind of adjust your expectations for, we'll just say the conditions on the ground, figuratively and literally.
And Markus, you mentioned, I think, one of everyone's, or at a subset of it, one of everyone's favorite topics, right? Machine learning as a subset of AI, which we'll roll right into our next question here, Joe. Is Pennoni utilizing AI in project delivery, and what benefits or challenges have you observed in its implementation?
Absolutely. We're seeing, new and even better applications all the time. Something like chat now has become a sort of table stakes. So sort of putting that aside, because I tend to rely on that even more and more just in my personal life. But, we're able to do things today that 2-3 years ago we couldn't even have imagined or dreamed. So, for example, pavement analysis is we're using AI for pavement analysis. The clients understand it. It's it's the way I always describe it. It's an analysis that was sort of very subjective. In the past, if you were working for a municipality and they wanted to know the conditions of their roads, or they wanted to do an annual road program, you'd go out and look at the roads, but then politics would come into it because, where does the mayor's sister's wife live, or the brother-in-law of the public work. So all the politics entered into it. When you're using AI for those analytics, and there are several companies out there that do it, we simply drive the roads, we collect video information. That video information goes back into their algorithms, and the algorithms compare the roads of the municipality against roads all over the world. So it's what was very subjective becomes very objective. And now from an engineering standpoint, you can't argue the analytics that the AI brings back, and the clients really grasp it. They kind of say, "Oh, you took that political thing off the table, and I don't have to worry about where my brother-in-law lives anymore, and I can just really look at to devote the my budget to the roads that need to have the most attention." But there are other, we use it we can look at trip generations, so where our origin and destination studies, those are all done using AI. Water leaks, there's a company out there that is using when water leaks into the soil, it has a chemical in it, and they use satellite imagery and their algorithms to determine where water leaks are occurring. So again, back to the traditional way that to find a water leak, you'd have to send a backhoe out and start digging up all the streets, within a half a mile radius to find the leak, because leaks will travel. And, they can pinpoint these leaks to, like within a meter. So it really puts a laser focus on the issue. Marcus mentioned, some of the Bentley products. When we do site design now, we're able to bring in AI to the site design software that we use. And then just the other day, we vetted another one for underground utility location. Again, something that was always very, very difficult, and to pinpoint where the exact locations of the utilities might be. We'd use sort of a combination of surveying. Ground penetration radar became available, LiDAR became available, but this company has a way to kind of use all of those things in combination with AI, and then build it into a 3D model. So really, it's penetrating everything that we do in terms of our ability to again satisfy the client's needs. But I think even in a more accurate way, in a very more objective way.
John, and these are really good examples, and all, back to the first one you gave with analysis of payment. And to the audience who's maybe not completely familiar, the idea would be, say, you drive down a road, you take a video and feed it into an AI machine learning algorithm. And let's say it can tell you the length of cracks that need to be sealed, or the size of potholes, right? And maybe you have some internal database that can tie cost to that for your client. And what Joe is referring to is this subjective piece, right? Maybe different engineers have different ways of doing things, and there's the whole politics piece. But the two things I really liked about your examples, Joe, are one, the objectivity, but also the speed of delivery, right? Because I can imagine that these new processes that you're implementing can be done a lot faster than maybe some of the traditional methods we're used to.
Correct. And again, back to that subjectivity. So like if forget the politics of it, but if we divided a town into 4 quadrants, and you took the east, I took the west, Marcus took the north and south, we'd all have different, the way we're looking at the cracks is all different. You're going to see them different than I see them. So yeah, and the speed of delivery is very helpful to both us and the clients. But I think what people worry about AI and sort of taking jobs, it's always the question that's out there. I think what AI allows us to do, though, is take a deeper dive into the data that we get back, and we could take that data, for example, and build out a model of like, in fact, I was on the phone this morning with a client doing a video conference with them. They want a 5-year projection of their how to best manage their dollars for their roads. And again, with this kind of data, we can build those kind of models a whole lot easier than we could have in the past. So where in the past we may have stopped at sort of solving problem A, now we can move into B and C and D. So we can take a deeper dive of the analytics based on a really, really good data.
And Really well said, Joe. And I know in my space, what we like to call it is we go from just fighting the fires and stopping there to being able to do not only that, but then allow clients to proactively prepare. So in the example of your 5-year plan, for anyone in the audience who's not familiar, is maybe you're taking these videos at year intervals. And for the lower priority, let's say roads, you can actually track the growth or not of these defects, right? And then you start to have data-driven decision making, because you can confidently say, hey, like, we took care of your priority 1 items last year. Your priority 2 items are either progressing to become priority 1, or maybe they're staying stable. So instead of saying, I think, and giving it, the good old one of these, right, you're actually able to really hone in and give your clients more certainty.
Yeah, and again, we can look at other data, right? Is what streets are likely to see more truck traffic? What streets are seeing higher average daily counts versus other streets? So when you pile that kind of data on top of the information you get back, then you can do these predictive analytics on sort of the life cycles.
And Marcus, as a follow up to this discussion, right? We know it's not easy to get everyone onboarded to a new way of doing things, particularly as things are changing so rapidly. But in your experience, what have been some of the most significant challenges in adopting new tech, and how can firms address them effectively?
So I think the answer is you can overcome the challenges. You might call it like an organizational inertia that you're pushing against. You overcome that by demonstrating the clear advantage that they're going to enjoy by using the technology, or you using the technology. And a couple examples jump into my mind just based on current events. So there's going to be a lot of recovery efforts relating to the impact of the fires in California, and so you've got services that are collecting satellite imagery, Planet IO and tons of others that have imaging. So they'll be able to not only show time lapse of what happened and when, but through machine learning algorithms are going to be able to identify essentially the impact and then begin to formulate a response. Right? There's obviously going to be a rebuilding effort, but there's going to be some effort to deal with the deforestation and mitigating the impacts of that, which when you get heavy rains, suddenly you're going to then be subject to landslides. So how would you solve that without a geospatial solution? Tons of manual data collection and paper maps. And so what a geospatial solution is going to allow is a rapid response. In the same way we do resiliency planning. We benefit from climate models and models around flood inundation, and we're representing those things really real time in 3D models. So when you're able to demonstrate that that I guess the agility and the ability to pivot very quickly and bring in third-party data sets or data that you're collecting in the field, I think it's almost like a solution that sells itself. You don't have to say much, because a client will not be able to come up with an alternative, at least one that can be pulled together and useful within a few weeks' time. Again, I mean, if you're thinking back in the history of the country, there were years-long surveys, to create, boundary and topo maps of the country. We don't necessarily have years to map the impact of a flood or a fire. And so I think the best way to overcome any kind of pushback is really to showcase the utility of the technology, and common sense people who are, interested in making smart decisions for their customers or for their constituents are going to support it, time and again. And I think Joe and I have both seen that our clients have been particularly open-minded about these new technologies. And frankly, when we arrive and we say, hey, we've got a solution to a problem you're having, they'll say, how soon can I get it? So there's a lot less change management, frankly, with the clients. I think with our own people, it takes a little bit more time, and that's where I would suggest a structured approach. So you have a pretty comprehensive vetting process to make sure the vendors you're bringing in are high quality and deliver what they say they do. And then you run things through, a pilot testing phase where you pick 1 or 2 trusted clients and you test things out. But, I think once you move through that and you've built up the confidence within your own people, it becomes fairly straightforward, to move the solutions into the hands of your clients.
So, and Marcus, it almost sounds like, it's just a tried and true principle, regardless of new or fancy technologies. It's that immediate time to value for your clients, and then showing your people through a methodical process why a solution is a good idea and how it's going to help them.
There's still, I believe that there still is some pushback by, we talk about this all the time in terms of the acceptance of the technology, right? To that question. And I think that there is, engineers are not quick to change or to accept the new shiny object, right? We're always skeptical of what we see. So we probably have more skepticism as an industry than our clients may have, because we want to make sure, look, we can't fail, right? You only get the chance to design a bridge once, and it better not fail. So when we use these technologies, they've got to be tested and true. So I think that we're our own worst enemies with that. But I find that from the client's perspective, it's easier for them to see the technology today than it even was 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's kind of they're moving rapidly. We may be putting the brakes on as an industry a little bit more because of the way we're built as individuals, right? Because again, we can't be wrong. So,
absolutely. And Joe, nice segue to the next question for you. So how can automation and AI improve project accuracy, efficiency, and timelines, right? All three of which are either a great concern of your clients or of the people that are doing the work.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is we may have more of a timeline in the front than we may have in the past. So, to that point, going back to the road analysis, right? I could have said, like, we're gonna analyze your streets. We'll be out there tomorrow. So with the technology, there may be more of an upfront. I got to get this ready. I gotta drive the roads. I gotta run it through the algorithms, that type of thing. But once we have the data, I feel as an engineer much more confident about the accuracy. Then again, there's that back to that subjective analysis. So I feel more comfortable discussing the accuracy of the information that I've gotten back, because I think we can all believe in it. And then the back end timeliness, I think it speeds it up a whole lot quicker in the BAS, because there is an almost instantaneous acceptance of the data, by the client. Yep, I get it, I see it. And we have the ability with our asset management group to create some really good, graphics that support the data that help people understand kind of what we're talking about. So for example, when you're looking at back to the road analytics, we get back the data we get back is it's color coded in 5 different shades, from dark green being the best to red being the worst, and 5 color gradations in between. When I show that to a client, it explains itself, right? If you're a kindergartner, you would get that information. Red is good, red is bad, green is good, right? So it's much easier to figure it out. So I think that I think it's I feel better myself about the accuracy. I think the clients do. The timeliness, I think, kind of takes care of itself, and the efficiencies that go along with it. In terms of, I was just at a conference a couple months ago, Bentley's conference, and where they talked about there was a case study they gave for a project with Kansas City DOT. Where they used a lot of technology to analyze like 750 bridges, and at the end of the day, they were able to, the DOT said they saved probably about $50 million in capital costs because of what they got back in terms of these analytics, as they were able to. So they're not going to take that $50 million and put it in their pocket. They're going to do more capital projects. So from the client, it makes the client much more efficient too, in terms of their ability to spread their dollars over a wider range of capital projects.
Yeah, and Joe, I know a personal example, a colleague of mine in the bridge world was just stating was actually load monitoring for posted bridges, right? So to the audience, instead of a bridge getting shut down or the need to be replaced, right, safely extending the life of the asset through monitoring. And I'm sure there's more to it than just that with Bentley's suite of products, but the idea being driving that immediate value so your clients can reallocate that capital as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. With today's technologies, as somebody always explained to me, with sensor technology today, the assets always spoke to us. We just never listened. Now, when you can start to put sensors on a bridge or on a building, now you can listen to what it's telling you, right? and that allows you to extend that shelf life. So where we might have gone out and posted a bridge to, with a weight limit that maybe we didn't need to post, right? So
absolutely. And just the way, traditional methods are set up to be conservative for a good reason, but today we have other techniques and technologies to hone in on the closer answer, let's say. And Marcus, I'll throw this one at you. So there's always going to be other factors at play when it comes to implementation of these emerging technologies. So what strategies can firms use to balance technological innovation with client expectations and budget constraints?
So I think we're probably weaving in and out of answers to all these questions. So my previous point around, the solution sort of proving itself, helps convince the client. But this question is really how do you balance all the different innovative things you can pursue, and what do you choose to bring to clients? And I think that comes down to some of the things that Joe was saying. You find a way to listen, and I like that analogy. We've been trying to hear what the assets are saying. We haven't had the right technology or the right microphone, to interpret it. So I think as the trusted advisor, it's the engineer's role and responsibility, to synthesize all of our learning. So it's our job to be out there attending technical trade shows and conferences, learning about new technologies, and then using our own best professional judgment, to provide guidance to our clients about what and when is appropriate for them. And frankly, we have to do so in a way that honors the relationship and the mutual trust. And that's, frankly, that comes down to professional discretion. And we talk a lot internally about, when to bring technology to which clients and how to do it. And it's a very, delicate conversation. The first time you're talking about bringing something new in, and it has to be presented in a way where we have the confidence to stand in the room and talk about it in the first place. So I think it goes back to, again, having a structured vetting approach, and then, having a careful and cautious selection process when you start to look at projects and clients, for whom that technology or that approach would have value, and then do an implementation with them in a staged fashion as well, so that you're not trying to boil the ocean. And I think often of this being sort of like a maturity model, where you're starting with your client on something very basic, and you're stepping them through these stages where you're adding progressive capabilities, or we'll say increasing fidelity to the data. And that is also the same as saying you're going to start with modest investments. You're not going to go ask for $250,000. You're going to say, we have an idea and it's going to be a $25,000 spend, but we are confident that it will work, and we will demonstrate how useful it is to you, and you will see it. And I think a lot of people, no matter who you talk to, they're almost always going to prefer a staged approach, because it de-risks the overall, we'll say, aspect of introducing or adopting new technology.
Which makes a ton of sense. And as a practitioner, that's the way I like to step my clients through the process as well. Because if you take baby steps to gauge interest and actually prove that your solution works, it's a lot easier to buy trust incrementally than it is all at once, or boiling the ocean, as you said, Marcus. And Joe, we'll go back to you with this one. This is one I'm really interested in hearing about. So what role does leadership play in driving the adoption of innovation within AEC firms? Because I think it's easy to just say, here's this technology, here's this product, it's going to change your world, boom. But as we all know, right, just dropping a bomb and walking away does not work.
Right. So at Pennoni, Marcus and I are both part of our C-suite. And, in fact, just yesterday we gave a presentation on we at Pennoni, we call it Pennoni Digital Labs. That's our sort of offering of digital services out there to our client world. But it does have to be a top-down kind of rollout of the technologies. There has to be support at the leadership level, and the younger staff tends to get it and really wants to. I think even in terms of attracting clients, attracting talent. We're in a sort of a talent shortage right now, as you know, in the industry. and young folks want to know that the firm is innovative, that they're looking at technologies, they're willing to implement the technologies. So I think that leadership plays an important role in making sure that they let the firm know that these are policies that we are backing, and we're looking to make sure that we're bringing the best and possible solutions to our clients. As I always say that to our staff, we don't want to be in a position where a competitor is bringing the technology to our clients and we haven't seen the technology. And I can tell you personally that I've been involved on the flip side of that. I've brought technologies to prospective clients that their engineer has not brought to them. So it's sort of embarrassing that other way. So we, as Markus said, we want to make sure that we, from a leadership standpoint, we know what the technology is, we understand what the technology is, and does it have a fit in our Pennoni world? And if it does, then we want to make sure that we do roadshows to all of our offices to make sure they see the latest and greatest. It's funny. We did a PowerPoint presentation last June or July, and we went on a roadshow to present it to all the offices. And by the time it was like November, and I was given the presentation, there were slides in there that were already obsolete. So that's how quickly the technology is changing too. So.
And I think what, some may not appreciate or understand, right? This is an investment for you guys, because it's not like you're just pulling engineers off the shelf and saying, hey, allocate 5% of your billable time to doing innovation, right? It's a full-time job between, right, research, conferences, roadshows. So and I can appreciate that because it's similar to what we do, but that endeavor, I mean, I know it doesn't go unappreciated. And Markus, I'll throw it back to you here. So this whole conversation has revolved around, technology, use cases, implementation. And another theme that I've seen emerge is that things become either obsolete or out of date very quickly as the landscape changes. So how can AEC professionals enhance their skills to remain relevant in our industry, particularly amidst all this change?
Yeah, we talk about this not only at Pennoni, but I can tell you in the industry, all of the associations talk about how to keep their membership current on, what new things are developing. And I'd say there's really two groups that, I could answer for. So one is the current, employed population. I think every firm has a responsibility, to, run good learning and development programs, keep their people, in tune with changes, company standards. But no company is going to be able to stay on top of, the sort of 24-hour news cycle of technology. And so I think individual contributors have a responsibility if they, and of course, this all comes down to what's your appetite for career growth. So if you're content to do what you're doing and you're satisfied with the tools that you have, and you will wait for your company, your project manager, your leaders to bring you new things, that's one way to go. But for those who are interested in, adopting an innovative mindset and pushing the envelope and finding new ideas to bring into projects, I think every single person at a company has an opportunity to bring a new technology in. And I could tell you for sure that not all the ideas and the technologies that we have at Pennoni are things that Joe and I identified. And in some cases, other people found them. They bring them into the group. And then, as I said earlier, we go through a qualification or a vetting process. So I think part of how you stay current is you stay curious, you stay open-minded, and, there's a lot of really great ways to socialize what you're doing and what others are doing. And there's almost an endless list of conferences and trade shows to attend each year. So if you go to those things with an open mind, and then if you're representing your company, you come back and you report out some of the great things you found, that's one good source of information. The other half of this is the education system, the supply chain of engineers. And I think it's our duty in the profession to partner with universities and engineering programs to help ensure that they're delivering high quality, modern instruction to their students. And that the only way to accomplish that is by actively participating in the boards of these educational institutions. I know many people at Pennoni sit on the boards of local universities and engineering colleges. And the reason to do that is to ensure that the instruction, the quality of it, the nature of it is keeping pace with what we need from, the new graduating classes each year. And what we needed in 1998, when I graduated, I would say is a little bit different than what we need today in 2025. And so it's our job to, maintain good, high quality connections to, the universities in order to do that. So I think as long as we're helping university programs to continue to evolve, and then as people graduate and they join our firms, we're continuing to help and support the employees to evolve and stay curious. That's probably the best case scenario. Are we all successfully doing it all the time? Not necessarily, but to me, I think that it's a two-way partnership. The firm is to support it and, create avenues, create pathways. But, you need people to have some innate hunger and curiosity, to learn and excel and really have passion about what we do in this industry.
Really well said, Marcus. And I can reflect on that myself and draw from, just things that I've seen that validates what you're saying. And Joe, I'll kick this one to you. So as you had mentioned earlier, right, there are the technical individuals that are, in the trenches doing the work, but there's also the technology experts. So the combination of you and Marcus, I think, being a good one, that's to me been pretty obvious from this interview. But how do you foster this collaboration between the technical teams and these technology experts to ensure that the integration of the new tools into workflows is actually done correctly, right? Because it's one thing for, me to say as a technology expert how it would work in theory. It's another for a practitioner to actually use it successfully.
Yeah, and again, you heard me say that's what I think is unique about the collaboration that Marcus and I have at the C-suite level, right? Is that we still have that practitioner to technology expertise that we tend to bring, I think, throughout the firm. So as other folks come up with the technologies, whatever side of the seesaw they sit on, I think we have that balance. And Marcus just mentioned it. We've had a lot of things brought to us that really don't have any merit. They're not ready for prime time yet. Somebody comes to us with a new shiny object, and we look at it. We say, I think it has merit, but I don't think it's there yet. A good example, I hate to keep coming back to it, but that one with the road analytics, I first saw that 7 years ago, and it was kind of great. I kind of saw it, but I said, you're going to need to really punch this up for it to be a product ready for prime time. And we really got involved in the beta testing of it and worked with the company. And, we would go out and we did a couple of kind of tests with it. And then we came back to them and said, can you do this or can you do that? And then they were able to change the algorithms. So that's a great way for both the practitioner and the technology group to work together. We're not about, we've had a couple things that have been incubated at Pennoni, but, we've decided that that's not our role to develop the technologies, if you will. But we do have a couple things that are homegrown, that we've looked at, but we really rely on the technology experts that are out there to come to us and to, as you said, conferences, trade shows, wherever we see it, to be able to say that one has some merit. I'm going to follow up on them when I get back to the office. And now the other thing that we do, and as I said earlier, we try to get to our staff as much as possible to make sure that they understand. We have I told you earlier about, it's called Pennoni Digital Labs. We have a digital labs call once a month with anybody in the firm that wants to get on the call and hear about the technologies, or hear, more importantly, about case studies of the technologies. Because a lot of times we'll see things and it'll have one application, and somebody, for example, in our Florida office might look at it and say, geez, I never thought of that. That really has merit in a project that I'm working on if we do a little bit of tweaking. And then that kind of gets these internal juices flowing for people to sort of collaborate across the geographies, across practices, across market sectors, to determine if there's a better application or another application that might make some sense here. We've had quite a few successes with that in pushing out these technologies.
Joanna, and it's such a good example, whether it be like you guys mentioned earlier, the road show, bringing the innovation to the individual offices, or letting individuals come to you guys on a monthly call. And those case studies are really key, because it's one thing to explain this is what the technology does. It's another to say, hey, here's an implementation in a project very similar to what you guys execute, and here's how we did it. And I know the latter is really what gets brains churning.
Yeah. I've been on calls where I've seen something, geez, have you thought that might work over here? And, that they never, again, they're in their own silo, so they don't see it. But, I try to think about, how it might work in a different market sector, different geography, whatever. So a lot of times just seeing something and I'll say, that'll work. I never thought of using that here. So,
and the other point I'll bring up was another piece you mentioned, Joe, basically build or buy on the software side, which I think it's a point of discussion for a lot of firms. And my theory has always been, as AEC professionals and firms, we're probably better sticking to what we know, but I wouldn't let that lead you astray. It's just whatever ends up working best for your specific business.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, this has been an excellent discussion, and we'll close with another question for both of you guys. And Joe, why don't you start? But what final piece of advice can you give to AEC professionals that are aiming to thrive in a technology-driven industry?
Well, I think that, again, if you're not going in this direction, you're not going to be long for the world, right? Is that the technology is going to make or break us as firms. I just watched the video yesterday that AEC did on the firm of the future. And I think the firms of the future are going to be much different than today. We used to, one of the quotes that I read in terms of technology is, we used to measure change in centuries and decades. Now we measure it in days and hours, because the change is going to be that quick. I think that the client expectation rolling out, how I see it, is that we've evolved into a three-dimensional world. So the expectation will be to see every project in a three-dimensional view. Clients will expect to sort of be involved, live in the project, walk the project, touch the project long before it's built, before the first shovel is in the ground. They'll be collaborative with the design professional in terms of making on the fly changes as a result of that sort of geospatial view. So I think that we're going to having been out there for years and years trying to explain to everyday people what a two-dimensional plan that is going to evolve into a three-dimensional project was always a very, very difficult task. Today we already live in that three-dimensional world, so we can bring videos and perspectives and those type of things to our clients. So I think that'll be the expectation. And then the fourth dimension will be time. Time will play into that geospatial thing also, in terms of what's the life cycle of the project, how's it going to evolve, what's it going to look like 5 years in, 10 years in, 20 years in. So it's good, and to be part of that, I tell our young staff, and I was an adjunct at a local university, Weidner, for quite a number of years, and to be part of what's going to be the future is going to be really, really exciting. So it's just going to change so fast, but it's going to be an exciting world to live in. So
I would say this echoes a little bit of what I said in some of my other responses, but I think everybody needs to embrace change, and that starts all the way back, in your college career, all the way through to whatever level of leadership you end up, occupying. And I mean that's a generically good piece of advice for almost anyone, but I think maintaining a sort of a consistent openness to change is going to position you well. The second thing I think more than anything is to never lose sight of the project objectives, or the objectives of your client. We get sometimes caught up in the beauty of the technology, or the state of the art is what we obsess over, when really we need to continue to circle back, or reset ourselves on what our clients' objectives actually are. And I think that North Star, frankly, should guide just about every managerial decision you make. Now, are there opportunities for you to guide your clients? Of course. But again, it's your professional duty, to act on behalf of your clients and, honorable and ethical way. And so never losing sight of what they're trying to accomplish, I think, is going to help to guide you make the right decision. Then finally, this would be more for people in managerial or leadership roles. I think it's to foster creative collaboration. And so create opportunities for people to bring new ideas in, so there's got to be an environment where people feel like there's mutual trust and they can bring an idea up in a meeting, raise their hands, and not be laughed at. But I think that it's important for the leaders, people in Joe's position or my position, to maintain organizational attentiveness and openness to new technologies and new ideas. And so I think across those three things, I think you're gonna set yourself up to thrive in this changing world, both as an individual and as a company.
Really well said, Markus. And to both of you guys, thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today. If the audience has questions on anything we've discussed or would just like to, set some time up with you guys, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
I could speak for myself. I'd say you can share my contact information. I can provide it to you, Nick, and you can include it in the the summary of the podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that same with me, and I think both of us. The Pennoni website has both of us on there, and our contact information, so you can find us there also. But LinkedIn, another way to reach out through LinkedIn, obviously. So
absolutely.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aectechpodcast.com. There, you will find a summary of key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering and technology endeavors. Thank you.